And hello, everybody. This will be a webinar, but it will be very interactive. I don't believe in just preaching at people or talking at people. So I hope you've got a pen and paper handy or whatever device that you like to make some notes on, because I will be asking you to think quietly about a few questions, a bit of a group coaching approach as we go through this. And I'd love you to share some of those things with the group and in the chat as we go forward. So you'll get out as much as you put into this. Enjoy yourself. This should be fun. And I hope you learn something new. So what I've called it is money mindset mastery through the eyes of positive intelligence. A little bit about me, just first of all, I am working as a business coach. I'm the business coach for the Better Business Network. So I will be coaching some of you later in the year. I also work as a sustainability consultant, and that's where I met Hannah doing my B-Leader training. I have a background advising largely African governments on sustainable economic development, so very much a social sustainability background. And I also kind of got my mini MBA managing for African travel businesses recently, which is how I got into B Corp and how I built my kind of skills on leadership and coaching. And then a year ago, I set up my own business as a leadership and business coach and a sustainability consultant. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I generally work with business owners on several things, kind of their vision for the future, their strategy, how to get there, their mindset, their skill set, and how to manage their energy so I can support them to accelerate their impact on the world. And I've highlighted mindset because that's really where we're going to be digging in today, largely on some mindset and in particular some money mindset. So I hope this is a really practical application for you as you're all business owners. So what we'll be doing, I'm going to give you an absolute whistle-stop tour of positive intelligence. I'm not going to do it justice in the time today, but I just want to introduce you to it and show you a little bit of the science behind it, just so you can kind of get the credibility of it. And then we're going to move quite quickly on to how do we apply it and how can we get you some wins today, largely taking some practical action to reframe your money mindset that's really going to support you in business going forward. So I said we're going to be working on your mindset. However, let's start with vision. So I know you guys all worked on your goals last week with Hannah. I don't know if you set any money goals. And money goals for you, they might be revenue goals, they might be profit goals, or it might be something outside of business. It might actually be saving goals or investment goals. But I'd love you to take a few moments now to jot down, what's your money goal for this year? What is it you're trying to achieve through money? And then what about in 3 years' time? What's your money goal for 3 years' time? Why are you here? What would you love to improve about your money mindset? What do you like to achieve at the end of it? That's an easy one for you. Then we'll move on. So a little whistle-stop tour of positive intelligence. Well, positive intelligence is basically one way to measure your mental fitness. And why positive? Well, basically, positive intelligence is because it's your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive rather than a negative mindset. So no matter what life throws at you, if you're mentally fit, then you can respond with a positive mindset rather than a negative one, which sounds ideal, I know. And some of you may have done the PQ assessment, which would have given you a score. So, you may know your IQ, you might know your EQ, your emotional intelligence, and the PQ score was a measure of your positive intelligence quotient, which basically shows you how much of your time is spent in positive emotions and compared to negative emotions, or the relative strength of your positive mental muscles in the right side of your brain versus your negative muscles. And why this is important, it's because there's been a lot of research done by Shazad Shemaine, who we'll come on to in a moment, and he's found that the very best predictor of people that are both successful in their professional life, that have really good wellness, happiness, and peace of mind, and that also have healthy relationships, the best predictor of that is a high PQ score. So people that spend more of the time in the positive part of their brain with positive emotions, tend to be both more successful at work, have more peace of mind and healthy relationships. And Shazad Shemaine has done a lot of research. He's a Stanford professor, and he's done a lot of work over the years with hundreds of CEOs and their teams, with his students, world-class athletes, and he's done this worldwide. And he's found that PQ score is a great predictor of success, happiness, and great relationships. And he's published a book on this. And I've been collaborating with him and running courses alongside him because I've looked into this research. I've gone through the program myself, and I've just been like absolutely had a transformational experience of learning this approach to mental fitness. And I think it's fantastic. Just for those hyper rationals in you, which thinks, well, that sounds like a load of baloney. What's the science behind it? I'm not going to go into the science, but he's based his positive intelligence work on some breakthroughs in positive psychology, in neuroscience, in cognitive psychology and performance science. So it's taking a lot of wins from those areas and putting it into something really simple that the average CEO can understand. And he's taken that research and he said it's basically boiled into three things, three core muscles that are at the root of mental fitness. Basically, a muscle being able to intercept those pesky saboteurs that Hannah and I were just talking about. The muscle of your sage, that right side of your brain, to inactivate the positive responses, and also the third muscle of self-command to enable you to move from the saboteurs to the sage. He said if you can build up those three muscles, just like you would in the gym, build up your mental muscles, then you can improve your P score and have success, happiness, and healthy relationships, which sounds wonderful, doesn't it? And he said at the very heart of it, there are 10 saboteurs that affect people in different strengths, unless you're Hannah, in which case they all affect you. And there's 5 sage powers. And these saboteurs, as I said, they live in the left part of the brain. And these sage powers generally live in the right side of the brain. And these 10 saboteurs, they're quite good at motivating you often, but they motivate you through negative emotions. Can you ever think of a time when you've achieved something, but it's largely been out of fear or driven by stress or maybe guilt? Saboteurs can be quite good at motivating you. However, the sage powers, they motivate you through positive emotions. Have you ever been motivated to do something through pure empathy, through curiosity, through getting creative and having a passion for something, and that drives you in a whole different way? So these saboteurs, they might generate success, but not generally happiness. Whereas if you tap into your sage powers, they can generate the highest success along with healthy relationships, happiness, and peace of mind. So the idea is we want to spend as much of our time as possible in that sage part of the brain rather than responding with our saboteur side. Now, I'm going to start just with a very quick intro to the saboteurs. Hopefully either you've all done the saboteur assessment, or when we go through these, you'll be able to recognize a couple of yours. So there's 10 saboteurs. Now there's 9, which are part of the assessment that many of you have done, but there's one we all have, and that's the judge. We all have the judge, probably more commonly known as the inner critic. We judge ourselves, we judge other people, but also we judge our circumstance. We judge our environment. So you might say, I'm not good enough to make money in this environment. You might judge yourself, and you might say to someone, she's definitely not good enough to be charging for what she does. But then you might judge your environment to say, there's no way I'm ever going to manage to make money this year because there's COVID. And I'm blaming that on my environment, and I'm judging my environment. That's the cause. So that's kind of the judge, and we all have this. Or if you don't recognize that in yourself, I'd love to hear. And then there are 9 other saboteurs that Shazad has recognized in people to different extents. So the controller, the hyperachiever, the restless, the stickler, the pleaser, the hypervigilant, the avoider, the victim, and the hyperrational. And generally, some people will have very strong in a couple and less so in others. And bearing all here, so here's my assessment. This is what I got. Can I just get a show of hands or a yes? Who managed to do a saboteur assessment before coming along here? No, Hannah did. Andy? No. Lindsay, Lynn? Okay, a couple. Well, that's fine. Like, I recommend you go and have a look afterwards. But to be honest, you'll probably have an idea of which ones a couple will be like, oh yeah, that's definitely me. So my biggest one is my hyperachiever, and my hyperachiever is the little voice inside me that says, you'll be worthy when you get that next thing. You'll be worthy when you sign the next client, when you make your next £1,000, when you. So there's little celebrations of what I'm doing. It's just like, oh, must get onto the next thing, always onto the next thing. My restless basically says to me, oh, what you're doing is not gonna move the needle. Move on to the next thing. So I never finish anything if I listen to my restless. I'm always moving on to the next thing. My pleaser says the way to success is to make everyone else happy, so I should do things that make other people happy. Forget about me. And the controller says that, if you want anything doing well, do it yourself. I need to be in control of everything. I shouldn't go out and ask for other people to work with me. Hyper rational wants to know about the facts and needs to know the reasons for everything. Needs to understand everything down to the base of it. The avoider goes without saying. Sometimes there are some things I avoid. Why I be prepared for this a little bit late, or why I don't do my taxes until the last week. Things I'd rather avoid. Don't do that because it's going to be unpleasant. There's also the victim. There's the stickler who needs to get everything right. If it's not, if it's not worth doing, if it's not perfect, so don't do it. And the hypervigilant is always looking for what could go wrong. So I don't know whether you identify with any of those if you haven't taken the assessment, but maybe one or two will be like, oh, I've probably got that little character playing along with my judge. So I'm trying to move along. For those of you either that have done this or think you might know, I'd love you to put in the chat, what were your top couple of saboteurs? Or if you haven't done the assessment, which one or two saboteurs do you think is quite big for you? What little cast of characters do you have sitting on your left shoulder, discouraging you?
Can you show them again?
Yes, I can show you mine. There. Controller for Hannah. Restless, pleaser, and hyperachiever. Wow, okay. You've got a fight going on in there, Hannah.
No, tell me about it. At least I feel it's less of a fight because I'm conscious of all of these things. I mean, I would have answered, I wasn't shocked by my results. I wasn't completely proud of them, but I wasn't shocked by them.
No. You see, the hyperachiever me was like, yes, I got high hyperachiever. Oh, aren't we ridiculous?
I feel like I don't relate to any of them. So what does that say about me?
Ooh, could there be some avoider in there? Could there be some judging? Maybe you're hyper rational and you're like, no, this isn't me. I don't know. That's interesting.
I just feel like I'm past all this and I'm really chilled now.
Well, good. Take it in and maybe some insights will occur to you later. Yeah, just enjoy. Part-time hyperachiever. I love that, Lynn.
Maybe I'm a part-time high achiever. Yeah, that'll be me. Yeah.
Great. Well, maybe when we go on to money mindset, you might be able to identify yourself. Controller, restless, and pleaser and avoider all calling out to you. Yeah, Lindsay, I recommend you have a look at the assessment and see if you're right, but I'm sure you are. We all know ourselves, really. So if and when you do the assessment, it will tell you, you've got, for example, they've definitely got a stickler in there talking at you, and these are the characteristics, not of you, but of your stickler. So it will say things like, your stickler has a strong need for self-control and self-restraint, and you can be highly critical of yourself and others, for example. And it will tell you often what the thoughts are, that when your stickler's in charge of your mind, if you can't do it perfectly, don't do it at all. And others have too lax standards, for example. And these saboteurs will come into play at work, in your home and family life, in your relationships, and we can also use it as the way that we look at our money mindset. And that's just the practical approach I'd like to take today, but you can use this for absolutely anything. So what do we mean by money mindset? Well, money mindset is your unique and individual set of core beliefs about money and also how money works in the world. So it's your attitude to money, both personally and impersonally. And your money mindset and your money blueprint will have been formed from when you were a wee boy, wee girl, up until the present, right? So everything, your environment, your family, your upbringing would have had an impact on that, about the way you live your life, you live your life, and the beliefs you have around money. And I can often, now I'm more aware of my saboteurs, I can kind of hear my saboteurs talking about money in that way to me. So, for example, my judge will come up and say that rich people are not good people, they're not happy people. I grew up with a couple of civil servants as parents who were very anti-rich people, and that's the story I've grown up on, that rich people aren't good, and then rich people aren't happy anyway. So, why would I want to be rich? Why would I want to earn money? My hyperachiever also saw my parents struggle with several jobs when I was growing up. Therefore, I have the belief, and my hyperachiever says, making money must be hard, otherwise everyone would be rich. So if I work harder, I will earn more. Then my restless will come along, especially when I'm proposing to clients, and my restless will say, the last prospect said, no, let's just give up on this. No one will ever pay you for this. Move on to the next project. My pleaser will say, oh, you can't charge for this. People will think you're taking advantage of them. Do it for free. You shouldn't be charging for supporting people. And then my controller will come in and said, oh, you can't rely on anyone else. This has been proven over time. You must independently earn money all on your own. You shouldn't collaborate. You shouldn't ask for support, etc. All these stories, all these lies that have been both built up over time, but also that my particular saboteurs just like to remind me about when I'm thinking about money. I don't know if any of these sound familiar to you. And why would I believe them? These are the stories we tell ourselves, but these are the stories we also believe. Well, I've seen that some rich people aren't happy. And I'm not rich, but I'm very happy. So maybe I should stay safe like this and not try and earn more money. Maybe if I earn more money, I'll be unhappy. And I have worked harder and harder over time, and that's resulted in promotions and it's resulted in higher paying positions. So maybe it is true that the harder I work, the more I'll earn in my business too. And then, about the they didn't say yes, so let's just move on. Well, my restless saying, well, of course they didn't say yes. I'm not worth it, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So, move on to the next idea. And in terms of my pleaser, well, people really do like it when I do things for free, when I do pro bono. So maybe I should keep on doing that to keep everybody happy. And I can go faster on my own. Others do slow me down. So why should I work with anybody else? Now, so all those lies have driven me to a certain level of success over time, but these lies have also cost me. And what's got me there won't necessarily get me where I want to go in the future, where I want to go in business. So I've been kind of being more aware of these beliefs around money, and I've been working on reframing them into something that serves me much better and supports me to be wealthy in all the areas of my life, monetary and otherwise. And this might be interesting for you guys. So I've jotted down a few of examples of what different saboteurs, the lies they may tell you about money, and see if you recognize any of these. It might help you to spot which some of your saboteurs are. Welcome to take a photo or a screenshot of these if it's helpful. So the judge might tell you, I will never make X amount of money. Not in this economy. I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. Judging me, judging others, judging the economy. The avoider might say, oh, I'm not ready for this. I don't have time to do prospecting. I'm too busy. Maybe I'll do it later. Your controller might say, if they would just stop doing X, then I would make Y. Time is money. Keep at it. Never slow down or we'll go broke. Keep control of the situation. Keep going. My hyperachiever might say to me, I've been successful. I've not been successful for a while. It's not working for me. I'm completely unworthy. My hyper-rational, I don't understand why these people have said no. The return on investment showed it was so obvious. Don't understand why they're saying no to me. And then the last 5, so the hypervigilant. I can think of 100 things that could go wrong in this new environment. It's so hopeless. Why even bother? The pleaser, this one, familiar for me. I'll just give it away. I don't need to charge anything. How much can you afford? The restless, I've received a few rejections, so it's time to move on. This isn't fun anymore. The stickler, I need an exact script. If I can't close every deal, why even bother? And the victim, maybe others can make money, but not me. I just never get a break. Do any of those sound any way familiar to you guys? Yeah, a couple of nods. It's not how we want to think about it, but it can creep in. Part-time pleaser, also linear. That's what happens when our saboteurs take control. They're always there. It's whether we let them stick around. So I'd love you to spend just a few moments and having a think to yourself, what are your beliefs around money? And what lies do your saboteurs tell you about money? Just take a few moments to have a think about that. Thanks, Andy. Just give you another few moments. Any more beliefs around money? Money is what? Perhaps they're your parents' beliefs about money that passed on to you. All right, are we good? Does anyone want a bit longer? Shout if you do. All right.
I'm just interested whether you're, and if I might be jumping the gun here, is whatever is on the report, are you saying these beliefs? So if you get a high hyperachiever, are you saying the belief you've got here is likely to be the same, or is that not necessarily a correlation?
No, not necessarily. These are just some kind of examples of the sorts of things the hyperachiever is likely to, but they might be quite different for you. I don't know if you wanted to share anything. You're welcome to, but don't feel you need to. Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, these are just some examples to kind of jog your memory. I think for me, the hyperachiever is definitely like, you'll be worthy when you achieve more when you get more, like then you'll be worth something when you're charging this much or whatever. I get that about me, fortunately, or about my saboteur, I should say. Just some examples to jog your mind. It might be something completely different for you, or it might be that that was, you know, no longer relevant for you. You've worked through that already, which is wonderful.
Yeah, I think I've worked through a lot of this, and a lot of this would have seemed very relevant at another time, but I'm also conscious that I don't want to sit in that space and not take in what you're offering. So it's interesting. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Well, I say we'll all take different insights from this. If you can just take one thing from it, one reminder of something like, oh yeah, that's come back into play now. Because they're all going to be, you know, stronger and weaker at different times. And it's just knowing that, oh, that's because that my stickler's popped up. It's not usually a thing, but for some reason, it, you know, we've triggered the stickler. All right, so I said there was 3 kind of mental muscles, and one was intercepting that saboteur. Another one was the sage power, the sage perspective. As she said, the sage lives in generally the right side of the brain. And the sage perspective is that every outcome or circumstance can be turned into a gift or an opportunity. And that basically is sort of the underlying thought of the whole of positive intelligence. So things happen. Pandemic happens. Is the pandemic a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's whatever you think it is. If you can say, well, the pandemic's happened, I'm not in control of it happening, and there's been some not great things that have come out of it for me and for other people. However, if I can tap into my sage perspective and use one of the sage powers like empathy or curiosity or creativity, for example, curiosity, how could the pandemic be a gift for me? How can I turn this into opportunity? Let me get curious. It's happened, I have no control over it, but how can it be a gift? Similarly, if a prospect of mine says no to me, I don't want to work with you, Mehalah, I could stay in that negative energy and I could, you know, say that's just a bad outcome, or I could get curious as to why they didn't want to work with me. What could I improve? I could get creative about my offer and feature, and I could take action to improve myself. So the sage perspective is that things happen, every circumstance. How do we get into the right side of our brain when it happens, come away from the negative reactions and the negative emotions, tap into that sage perspective, which say, okay, this has happened. How do I turn it into a gift? How do I turn it into an opportunity? So the sage perspective motivates you through positive emotions, through curiosity, through creativity, through passion, through purpose. And you might say that the way of the sage is ease and flow. Okay. Although often when it comes to money, we don't often feel so much ease and flow around this. So how can we bring this ease and flow to money? Now, you heard all my potential saboteur beliefs about money. If I really tap into my sage, I don't know, there are some different truths that would a good reframe for some of my beliefs. So some of my sage truths about money, that making money is actually easier. Well, it's easy when I trust my inner sage, when I trust my inner self, when I'm in flow, when I'm in my area of genius, my zone of genius, when I'm doing what I do with love and with passion, making money is easy for me. And I need to remind myself of that, right? Another sage truth about money for me is that investments can be risky, which is why I choose to invest in myself to ensure my outcomes. I sold my car last year and I looked at investing the money. In the end, I put it into my own personal development and coaching and masterminds because I want to back myself and I see that as a good investment. And that was a good sage moment for me. You guys have all invested in the Better Business Network, so you obviously believe that too. Those who are clear on the value they provide deserve to be well compensated. I completely believe that. I know that's true. Money is a tangible exchange of value. I know how valuable I am. Therefore, there is no upper limit to what I can make. Now, I know that's true. Do I always believe in that at every moment and of every day? No, but I know it's true. And that survival is a scarcity concept. Like true abundance is all about tapping into my sage and receiving without resistance. So there are some truths about money that when I tap into my sage, I believe, and they help me reframe some of my, the more negative mindset beliefs I have. So questions for you guys, just have a think about, especially if you go down and look at some of the saboteur beliefs or saboteur lies that you thought of earlier. What are some of the sage truths about money for you? that you do genuinely believe and that are true to you when you're in that right part of your brain. Take a moment, have a look over those beliefs. What is a truth about money for you? Just going to give you a few more moments. I never like to leave anyone in wallowing the negative. I like to reframe. What are these truths that are going to help you get to that money goal that you set, maybe last week, maybe that you wrote down at the beginning of the session? What's the truth? What do you want to stick it to the saboteurs? All right. Now, I would love Hannah to help me out here, if she wouldn't mind. And just because you guys have been a bit quiet, and I think it's always good to discuss these things, I wonder if Hannah would mind putting you guys in small breakout rooms just to discuss amongst yourselves. To discuss my saboteur lies about money are, and this is how I'm going to be reframing them. Well, I'm just going to take you through the third mental muscle. So we've had the mental muscle of intercepting those saboteurs when those pesky saboteurs come up. And we've had a little bit of chat around the sage and building the mental muscle of the positive sage, which Hannah has just been talking about. And yeah, a little bit about the third mental muscle, really. Let me share my screen properly. Sorry, guys. So something Hannah and I were just talking about, it's not really about how many saboteurs you have or how strong they are, how loud they shout. It's really just a case of when you hear the saboteurs whispering those sweet nothings in your ears that are sabotaging your success, sabotaging your happiness, sabotaging your relationships. It's really just about shifting, saying, thanks, stickler. Thanks, hyperachiever. Thanks for reminding that. Thanks for triggering that. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to shift over to a sage position, a sage perspective. And I guess the question, is it really possible just to shift from one to the other, especially if it's a tough challenge or something that you deem as quite bad has just happened? You've had something that's not worked out the way it is. You know, you start to feel the guilt or the shame or the stress around it. How easy is it to shift over to the sage when you're feeling those negative emotions? Well, it's totally possible to shift over, but it really depends how strong that mental muscle is that allows you to shift over. And that third mental muscle is self-command. And it's commanding your mind to go, okay, thanks, you're in the left side of the brain, I'm feeling these negative emotions, you can stop now, you've served me, I'm moving on. So in a nutshell, the process that the positive intelligence says to follow, which is basically feeling a negative emotion, the stress, there's anxiety, the shame, there's guilt over something, stop, you're in saboteur mode, and quieten the mind by doing something that Shazad has called a PQ rep. And I can just talk about that in a moment. So quieten the mind and activate the sage part of your brain, which assumes that every problem can be converted into a gift or an opportunity and go through the sage powers. How can I show myself more empathy in this moment? Or how can I show someone else some empathy? If it's someone else that's triggered you, how can I get curious? What questions can I ask to find out more about this and how I can move forward? How can I get creative and problem solve around this? How can I start innovating? How can I get innovative and improve things? And then, given I've shown myself maybe some empathy, I've got curious, I've been creative, I've been innovative, what clear-headed, laser-focused action can I take to respond in a positive way to this relationship failing, to this client saying no, to the pandemic, for example? And this is basically self-commanding your mind, right? And by PQ reps, something to quieten your mind, Shazad's worked with a lot of CEOs, so he doesn't like to call it anything too woo-woo. But basically, he recommends doing at least 10 seconds of just tapping into your physical senses. So it might be 10 seconds of paying attention to your breathing, 10 seconds of just listening to what you can hear around you, 10 seconds of giving great visual focus to the scene in front of you, 10 seconds to feel your toes on the floor. So when you're feeling that negative emotion, it's just a way of calming the mind. And maybe you need more than 10 seconds. Maybe you need 10 seconds of wiggling your toes, 10 seconds of listening to your breathing, 10 seconds of, and he calls that a PQ rep. And it's just a way of, when I'm feeling a negative emotion, let me just take 10 seconds to quieten the mind. And the reason why he doesn't call it meditation or something similar, because you can do this in a board meeting. You can do this in the middle of an argument with your spouse. Just feel into my physical emotions, get myself out of my head and into my body. And then think, okay, let's use one of the sage powers. Let's show myself some empathy. Let's get curious. Let's innovate. And that's his process of basically self-commanding your mind away from a negative emotion and thought to some positive, clear, focused action. Now, I can tell you all this and you can go, yeah, Mehalah, that makes sense. And hopefully today you've had a couple of insights and think, yeah, okay, I've learned something today. That sounds really good. But often to form kind of lasting positive change is 20% insight and 80% action, putting it into practice, building that mental muscle. And success requires intense initial practice. So I would encourage you to catch your saboteur as often as you can, practice quietening your mind and tapping into that sage perspective. There is a positive intelligence course, a blended learning course, which I run with Shazad. He runs some of the teaching and the modules, and I run some of the discussions and the facilitations. And if you would like to have some real intense practice and work on this for a 6-week program, I'm running 6-week programs on positive intelligence currently and going forward. And my gift to the Better Business Network, if you'd like to do a 6-week program on practicing moving from your saboteurs, intercepting, self-commanding away into the sage, and focusing on success, happiness, and healthy relationships, then I'm gifting the Better Business Network 30% discount on my Positive Intelligence program from June. Let me know if that's of interest. Been good. I'd also love, once you've done your saboteur assessment, if you're interested in finding out a bit more about it, you're very welcome to book in for a free half-an-hour kind of debriefing on that with me. If you want to come and sit with me and we'll go through it and talk about what that means for you, then feel free, book in, let's have half an hour together, let's chat through them. I'm always interested to learn about other people's saboteurs, especially when they're a bit different from mine. I know very little about the hyper-vigilant, the hyper-rational, the stickler, the victim. So if you've got any of those, then I will geek out in having a chat through with yours. And finally, I am the business coach, the Better Business Network. And for some of you that have signed up to All Access, then I have the pleasure of working with you over the next few months, over the next year. And for the whole of the network, I'd love to offer a 20% saving on my 3 and 6 month coaching packages. So if you'd like to do some in-depth work with me on your mindset, on your strategy, on your skill set, on your energy, and on your vision, get in touch. Let's have a chat. I'd love to find out more about you and support some of your great businesses.
Thank you so much, Mehalah. That was amazing. I hope everybody got some value from that and has maybe put some positive statements that they can use going forward when it comes to their money mindset. I'll be sharing all of this in the Slack channel as well, and I'll be getting Tom to edit this video and subtitle it, so it will also be available for people to rewatch or maybe redo once they've redone their assessment. But yeah, we're all done now, guys. See you on Friday for our networking. Thanks again so much to Mehalah. If anybody wants to speak to Mehalah further, I will be sharing all her details, including her really generous offer of a 30-minute chat through your saboteur assessment. So yeah, thank you everyone. Have a good evening. 6 o'clock. Go make yourself a cup of tea or a glass of wine and chill out and enjoy your evening. And I will speak to you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.